So
Okay, well, I understand the Dr. Newberger issue, but besides Dr. Newberger, how many more am I getting?
I think Ms. Crawls and I have worked through 5 or 6 more to be provided to the court this afternoon.
Yeah, we've given 4 or 5 to you, but I haven't seen objections filed or anything, so we haven't submitted them because,
Okay, but we'll get that done this afternoon on both sides.
okay.
And we're sorry.
It is what it is.
Just to the plaintiffs, because we heard Bifocal's coming, if he's going to be testifying on anything other than his old life care plan, we need that ASAP. We have not received an updated life care plan. If he's testifying on the life care plan, he gave a deposition, I can cross him on that.
Plaintiffs have heard that, so
Okay, I thought we sent it over, but Dr. Bifalco's updated life care plan.
We got a written report, but we haven't seen any type of life care
You mean
plan.
calculations?
No, the actual plan of what,
Okay, all right, we'll get it to you.
it's not as extensive as perhaps you're expecting.
Okay, if that's all there is, that's all there is. Thank you.
All right, so we have for the defense, I mean, we have Dr. Bifalco, we have Robert Tremp, and we have our economist,
okay. Well,
and that's
from a timing standpoint, if I can get you all to rest next week and you can build in time for time off, then let's do it. If you're not going to be able to rest next week, then I'm not sure we take time off next week, because the following week I think we've got a little bit of time.
Wednesday?
that's fair.
So that's I really need you to rest by Friday, and then if you're going to be able to do that and you can tell me you got a half day someplace to take off, I'm fine with that.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Is there any objection from the defense on Dr. Newberger appearing by Zoom? If he gets well enough to do that?
No, sir.
So he could appear by Zoom
Pending his health, but I
if
guess
he's not sitting in a hospital room. Is that
he
what you're
is
telling me?
currently, but I'm hoping that over the weekend he gets better, that's all.
He's at Mass General, and he is in a hospital room. He's having testing done. He had lower intestine bleeding or
All right,
intestinal
let's not get into his personal on national TV.
Sorry about that, Dr. Newberger.
Okay. Anything else? Can I bring in the jury?
Are we set up?
We
for
will
the
be playing Rebecca Johnson first.
And I'm assuming, Mr. Reyes, you're going to be able to play it. Looks like all the screens are on. And everyone. Yes. Sign or.
Good work.
That's good. All right.
Do you want to practice it for a second to see if it's okay?
We have to
Okay.
send them the doctors we want from them.
Are we ready to go?
I'm going to do a quick audio test, Your Honor, so we don't do that with the jury in here, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Will you raise your right hand, please, Ms. Johnson?
Okay, we're good.
Mr. Reyes, are you okay?
Yes, I'm fine. May I display just this screen, or do you want me to take that down until they show up?
Why don't you take it down? Thank you. Okay, members of the jury, I want to confirm while you were away, you did not discuss this case amongst yourselves. You did no investigation and received no information. Is that all correct? And since you were last here, has anyone approached you about this case? No. And since you were last here, have you seen any media accounts of this case? Thank you very much. Now, let me tell you, this morning, you're going to see two different depositions. We're going to take a break after the first deposition, and then you'll have the second deposition later on this morning. The deposition is sworn testimony of these two witnesses that was given before trial, and it will be presented to you this morning. You are to consider and weigh this testimony as you would any other evidence in the case. And with that, let me figure out how to turn these lights off. Are you able to see?
Not very well. I want to disagree with the judge, but
There's like 9 buttons. Okay. If that is too much light when we start playing the depositions, let me know and I'll keep pushing buttons. Okay, Mr. Anderson, who are we having first, please?
Rebecca Johnson. Rebecca Johnson.
Thank you. Mr. Reyes, you may start the movie.
Okay. Thank you. Will you raise your right hand, please, Ms. Johnson? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give today be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay. I guess I'd like to start with if you could give me your professional name and professional address for the record, please.
Sure. It's Rebecca Johnson. I'm an LMHC, licensed mental health counselor. I'm the owner of Restoration Counseling in Cape Coral. It's 1222 Southeast 47th Street, Suite 215.
Okay. And when did you begin restoration counseling approximately?
March of 2017.
Okay. And my understanding is that you have seen Maya Kowalski, Kyle Kowalski, and Jack Kowalski at Restoration Counseling from when you opened it to the present day, correct?
Yes.
And my understanding is you've recently had some visits with Maya and Kyle as recently as November of this year. Is that correct?
Correct.
Prior to Restoration Counseling, where did you work?
At Eagles Wings Counseling Center in Venice.
And how long were you at Eagles Wings Counseling Center?
I was there 3.5, 4 years.
Okay. Oh, and approximately when did you start at Eagles Wings?
Thinking back. Probably February 2014-ish, somewhere around there. That's when I graduated with my degree. So I started my internship with them.
Okay. Well, let's talk about that. Can you give me the benefit of your education and training starting from the time that you graduated high school and moving through all degrees and education obtained through to the present day?
Okay. I graduated. You want the date of when I graduated high school?
You can approximate it. It's fine. Like I told you, it's not a memory contest.
I graduated high school, and then I graduated with my 4-year degree in 1998 psychology, and then I went back to get my graduate degree in 2011.
So you went back to get your graduate degree in 2011?
Right. I didn't do my undergraduate and graduate consecutively. I had quite the gap there and decided to go back in 2011 for my
Fair enough. Understood. I did the same thing with my law degree. In the period of time I went to law school, but before law school I was a teacher. What did you do in that gap between 98 and going back in 2011?
I actually worked in finance and
Okay.
human resources.
What kind of finance?
I worked in bookkeeping. I worked for a couple different companies through that 20 years span-ish. Yeah, human resources as well.
Okay. What was your 4-year degree in?
Psychology
And where did you obtain that 4-year degree?
at Malone College in Canton, Ohio.
Okay. And you worked in bookkeeping up until you went back to get your graduate degree in 2011?
Yes, correct.
Where did you go get your graduate degree?
At Walden University. It was an online program.
And where were you when you were doing that online program?
I was here in Florida.
Okay. Where is Malone?
Malone is in Ohio, Canton, Ohio. That's where I was living.
Okay.
That's where I grew
What
up.
brought you down to Florida?
Just a change of scenery. Something new,
Weather, I'm sure, played somewhat of a role.
of course.
Always does. And so how long was your Walden University online program?
It was a 3-year program.
Okay. And were you a full-time student?
Yes.
And when you say online, was there components of it that was in person and components that were digital, or was it all digital?
No, there were components that were in person. We would meet for intensive trainings a couple times a year.
Okay. And you said it was a 3-year program. Am I correct in understanding you graduated in 2014?
Correct.
And what degree did you obtain upon graduating in 2014?
A Master's of Science in Mental Health Counseling.
Okay. And at that point, am I correct in assuming that with a master's, you can't just jump right into private practice? Is there some type of on-the-job type of training you have to do in order to obtain a licensed mental health counseling license here in the state of Florida?
Yes, you need to register with the state of Florida as a registered mental health counseling intern and complete 2,000 hours of direct counseling, group counseling, in order to sit for your licensure exam.
And that 2,000 hours, is that something that you completed between 2014 when you graduated with your MS and the time that you obtained your license in, I believe, October of 2016?
Correct, yes.
All right. In some of the paperwork that was provided from Eagles Wings, you're listed as a, quote, registered mental health counselor intern. Is that a correct description of what you were in terms of a licensure standpoint in 2015 and for a good chunk of 2016?
Correct.
What is the difference between an intern and a licensed mental health counselor?
Sure, the intern is when you're registered with the state as an RMHCI, so registered mental health counseling intern. That is the span in which you're working towards your licensure, and it's all tracked through the state.
Okay. And some of this paperwork, I also see like letters or notes that you would sign off on. There would be an individual by the name of Lauren, M-A-U-C-K, Lauren Mock. Looks like she's a master's in LMFTQS at Eagles Wings. Who is Miss Mock?
Lauren was my supervisor during that 2-year span of working on my hours for licensure. So she was.
Okay.
And go ahead.
What type of role would she play?
She was the QS behind her name stands for Qualified Supervisor. So she's had training in supervising RMHCIs.
And did you complete your internship on time as scheduled?
Yes.
Okay, so to the best of your knowledge, you became a licensed mental health counselor effective October 31st, 2016 here in the state of Florida?
Correct.
So what is your current niche, for lack of a better term?
Sure. Currently, I work a lot with psychological abuse and emotional abuse.
Psychological abuse and emotional abuse?
Correct.
Can you kind of explain that to me? I don't have as sound a footing in psychology as I'm sure you do. I don't have a master's, but can you kind of break down what that niche of psychological abuse and emotional abuse means?
Sure. Psychological abuse, emotional abuse, they can overlap, but they're definitely, there's some distinctions as well. But psychological abuse is when there's a lot of manipulation in a relationship, pathological lying, gaslighting, just a toxic behavior within a relationship, within a family.
Okay. And obviously, in this case, and I assume in your practice, you've treated both children and adults. Is that correct?
Yes, I treated more children during my internship. I've pulled away from that just a bit, and do mostly families, individuals, and couples at this point.
What about, and again, it's a rough estimate, during that 2,000-hour internship period from 2014 to 2016, can you break down your percentage of adult versus pediatric cases?
Yes, it was probably 50-50 at that point.
At the time you encountered Maya and her family back in 2015, what was your understanding of complex regional pain syndrome?
Little to zero.
Had you had any prior experience with a complex regional syndrome pediatric patient prior to Maya Kowalski?
No.
Have you had any pediatric complex regional pain syndrome patients after Maya?
No.
Do you consider yourself an expert in the treatment of pediatric complex regional pain syndrome patients?
No.
Based on some records that you provided us, you saw the family. I believe you saw Maya and Kyle and perhaps the father in November of 2020. Is that not correct?
That's correct, yes.
Did you get an update from the family in connection with your counseling with them in November of 2020?
Not any kind of specifics, just kind of how they were feeling about it and what was happening just within their home.
My understanding, based on looking at the records, is that you, in addition to providing services to Jack, Maya, and Kyle, you also provided some mental health services to Beata Kowalski. Is that correct?
I saw Beata briefly, initially before her children came to see me.
Can you please explain to me why it was that you initially cared for Beata Kowalski and that Mrs. Rogers later came to be involved?
Sure. Beata initially came to me to share what is happening with Maya, what's going on with just sharing the story of Maya and what she was dealing with. It's very normal and usual for a parent to meet with a counselor first, to share information, to discuss goals, to discuss what they would like to see happen in therapy, etc. Get feedback from me in order to determine if it's a good fit. So that was my first session with Beata.
And do you know, based on your records or your recollection, how many times you actually met with Beata Kowalski?
I met with her twice.
Okay, so between 10-14-15 and 12-16-15, we have two kept appointments, and we have 3 cancellations, right?
Right.
Okay, and I may have already asked this, but since we're going through it now, it looks like as if on January 6th of 2016, Michelle Rogers assumed care for a series of dates. Do you see that on the form?
Yes, I do.
And can you describe, if you can recall, why it was that care transferred from yourself over to Miss Rogers around the new year of 2016?
Right, because Beata was looking for individual counseling for herself. So Michelle took that case over, took her
Okay.
over.
And do you not do individual counseling?
I was not going to do that with Beata as I was already seeing the children.
Okay. And it looks like Miss Rogers did some individual as well as some marital counseling as well.
I believe so.
All right. And am I fair in assuming here that your first visit with Maya was November 9 of 2015?
Yes.
I see that there is 11 kept appointments between November 9, 2015 and February 22, 2017. Am I correct in assuming that there were 8 appointments that were either canceled or didn't go forward?
Looks like there's 7.
Okay, seven that didn't go forward.
Yeah.
The C next to 12, 16, 15, that would have been canceled.
Right.
The L next to 12/30/15 would have been a late cancellation, correct?
Correct.
What does the N stand for next to 8/22/16?
No show.
Okay. And then we've got a series of keeps here, it looks like, starting with August 23/16 through September 26/16. And then we've got a no-show on 10/4/16. Right? Did you review any of her prior mental health records in connection with rendering services to Maya Kowalski?
Typically, that's a question I ask. I don't see that it's in my notes, so I don't recall from memory.
Okay. If you had reviewed records from outside providers, was that something you would document?
I did not review any outside records. I do know that for sure.
Okay. Is that something in your clinical background? Do you sometimes come to review mental health records from other providers?
Right, I do.
And why do you do that?
Just to collect a history.
Is that history important to rendering services?
It can be.
Okay. So am I correct in assuming that you never reviewed any of Maya's mental health records from a Miss Catherine Bliss?
I did not.
Do you know who Miss Bliss is?
I did not.
Am I correct in assuming you never reviewed any records, psychiatric or otherwise, from Tampa Hospital, and Maya was there for approximately a month?
No, I didn't.
Maya also went to Chicago Lurie's Children's Hospital, where she was hospitalized for a second opinion around the time that she was at Tampa General. Did you review any of the psychiatric or psychological records from that visit?
No.
And I think you said in your experience it is beneficial sometimes to review outside documentation from other providers?
Can be.
You said it can be? And why is that?
It's important to know if there's been significant issues in the past, if the client has had previous mental health care.
As you sit here today, are you aware of what Tampa General Hospital diagnosed Maya Kowalski with?
No, I'm not.
As we sit here today, are you aware what Lurie's Children's Hospital diagnosed Maya with?
No.
As we sit here today, are you aware of what Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital diagnosed Maya Kowalski with?
No. Sorry, let me back up. When she was in that 3-month period in Johns Hopkins, is that what you're referring to?
At any point. So she had been there in 2015. She was also there in 2016, parts of 2017. My question is, are you aware at any time along that continuum what the Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital psychiatric or psychological diagnoses for Maya Kowalski were?
Sure, I understand that there is a factitious disorder diagnosed, as well as then into a conversion disorder.
Okay. And how did you come to be aware of those developments? Or diagnoses, I should say, not developments.
That was probably.
In other words, did you see a record from the hospital, or was this something that would have been communicated to you by the family?
This was communicated by the family.
Okay. Did you ever speak with any of the mental health providers at Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital?
No.
Did you ever speak with any of the mental health providers at Lurie's Children's Hospital?
No. I did speak with Dr. Duncan at some point.
Okay. So you spoke with Dr. Tashana Duncan.
Correct. I believe that was probably October.
Okay. All right. Well, let's start with Maya then, and we're going to go to Eagles Wings Counseling. My understanding is the first note we have here is from November 9, 2015. Is that also your understanding? Yes. What is the presenting problem listed here for Maya Kowalski on 11/9/15?
What she initially came in with, those presenting issues were depression, anxiety. She had trouble sleeping. All of these things were reported to be related to her pain. She had difficulty concentrating. She was angry, and she felt hopeless.
And it says here medical DXRSD. Is that a diagnosis you rendered, or would that have been the diagnosis that was rendered by somebody else?
That was what was reported to me.
Okay, and then turning to that third page, about middle of the page, EW3, it says first session with Maya, RDS diagnosis. Maya is in a wheelchair in extreme pain from disease, has pain meds. Do you see?
Yes.
Do you have any independent recollection of Maya and how she behaved during this first visit, or are you going to be relying on your charting?
No, I remember it quite well as it was to see a child come in a wheelchair in your head.
You kind of broke up a little bit there. What did you say?
I was saying if I remember what that first session was like with her, because she did come in the wheelchair. It was something that did stick in my memory. Her mood, how she was feeling. Yes, I recall that.
Okay, so why don't you describe in more detail, separate and apart from what you've charted here, what you recall about interacting with Maya Kowalski on that first visit in November of 2015?
Sure. When I first met with her, greeted her, it was in the lobby of Eagles Wings. We introduced ourselves. I took her back to the art room. She was obviously comfortable physically.
She was obviously what? I missed that.
Not physically comfortable.
Okay.
And she, somewhat distressed, emotional.
Okay. And it says here this first visit that Maya did some, it looks like some art therapy or things along those lines. And then it says here, if I'm not mistaken, reports they are leaving for Mexico on Tuesday, coma, needs to cancel appointment but schedule for Wednesday in December. Did I read that into the record correctly?
Leaving for Mexico on Thursday, not Tuesday.
Oh, did I say Tuesday? I'm sorry. Okay, so leaving for Mexico on Thursday. Let me ask you about that. What do you recall about either Maya or her mother explaining the treatment in Mexico?
I recall them, Maya specifically being hopeful that this would bring some relief for her.
Did they discuss what type of therapy was going on in Mexico?
They may have mentioned it was the ketamine therapy at that point. I'm not sure.
Did you inquire about how Maya felt about that upcoming trip to Mexico?
Yes, I did. That's why I remember her saying hopeful about that treatment.
Did she express any other concerns about that therapy?
Not that I recall.
At this point, what was your plan as a licensed mental health counselor? What was your stated plan with respect to counseling services to Maya?
My plan was to help her identify the emotions that she was feeling, the depression, find coping skills for the anxiety. So her general emotional health was our focus.
Were you doing, at this point, were you doing CBT for her diagnosis of CRPS/RSD at this point?
Yes, I was doing CBT related to play and art therapy.
Okay. So the play and art therapy could be categorized as CBT?
Yes, it's a type of CBT.
Okay. And was this CBT directed towards the depression and anxiety or directed towards the underlying pain disorder?
The depression and anxiety.
All right. So were you providing at this point CBT services for a diagnosis of CRPS?
I was providing services for treatment of depression and anxiety.
Okay. My next note that I have documentation for Maya is from 12/9/15, and that's on EW04. Do you have that record in front of you?
I do.
The next consult note that I have at Eagles Wings is approximately 8 months later, dated August 10, 2016. Is that the next note that you have in your charting for Maya Kowalski?
guess.
Okay. I guess what I'm driving at here is you had 2 visits with Maya in 2015, and then we don't have another one until August 10 of 2016. Was that part of your plan as prescribed, or would you have preferred to see more therapy sessions in that 8 to 9 month interval?
Go ahead.
That was not part of any kind of written plan that we had had.
Whether written or otherwise, what was your understanding of the plan for Maya Kowalski after the December 9, 2015 consult we just talked about?
Typically, we have more frequent sessions.
And why is that?
So there's a continual treatment.
Now, going back to this appointment history form, EW 2017, it looks like we had a 12, 16, 15 visit, and there's a C next to that. Do you see that?
Yes.
That stands for cancel, correct?
Yes.
And then we have a 12/30/15 visit scheduled to be with you with Maya on 12/30/15. There's an L next. That's a late cancellation, correct?
Correct.
Do you have any idea, either through independent recollection or looking at your notes, why after that late cancellation on 30/15, we have a gap of approximately 8 months until we pick back up in 8/10/2016?
I do not know why that gap exists in time.
Okay. But that was not a gap that was recommended by either you or your supervisor. Am I correct in assuming that?
Correct.
How many consults do you have for Maya Kowalski in January of 2016?
None.
Same question for February of 2016.
None.
Same question for March of 2016.
None.
Same question for April of 2016.
Direct form.
Same question for June and July of 2016.
No.
And by no, I mean during that interval, there were no consults at Eagle Wings Counseling.
No.
What is your understanding of what mental health services Maya Kowalski was receiving between December of 2015 and August 10 of 2016?
I do not know of any.
And do you know why that gap exists?
I do not.
Do you know why the family decided to resume in August of 2016?
I don't.
Okay. Looking at the very top, after Maya resumed care with you, I'd like to just look here at under mood. What did you label Maya as in August 10 of 2016?
August 10th, her mood was checked as depressed.
Okay. And then her thought process, am I correct here that you have checked hopelessness?
Correct.
Okay. At any point, do you recall or did you document whether Maya was receiving ketamine infusions during this period of time she was not treating at Eagle's Wings?
I do not know.
Okay. And then under progress notes, plan, homework, and for the record, we're at EW0006 discussing an August 10, 2016 Eagles Wings Center progress note. Can you please read in, actually I'll read it and you can tell me if I'm reading it properly or not. Under progress notes, plan, homework, discussed physical goals, walking, ! Normalize sadness and anger, RSD, address bullying, Insta. Client would like more time with neighbors, friends, possible pet therapy. Client states she is willing to participate in counseling, equipped coping skills. Did I read that into the record properly?
Right. After address bullying, it says Instagram.
Instagram, okay, Insta. So do you recall what this bullying was in the Instagram?
I believe some people were making rude comments to her on her Instagram account.
Okay, any more detail about that?
I don't. I believe maybe it was probably regarding her appearance, just just ugly words other kids say.
Speaking of appearance, what was Maya's ambulatory status as of August 10, 2016? In other words, was she walking around using crutches? Was she in a wheelchair? Do you not recall?
She was still in a wheelchair. She did seem improved. I do remember that.
She did seem improved? In what sense did she seem improved?
Physically, and emotionally.
So now, is this something that you documented that she seemed improved physically and emotionally, or something you independently recall?
That's something I recall, and from the notes, her wanting to spend more time with her friend, who was her neighbor. So before that had never been much that had happened. So this was new for her, wanting to spend time.
Again, it looks like her, actually I had a question about something in the column here. It's a little star here under interventions. Pet Thera with Gracie. I was just curious what that was a reference to.
That was pet therapy with Gracie. So she brought in her puppy Gracie that day.
Gracie's the dog.
Understood. Okay. And what is the purpose of pet therapy?
Often it is for just calming the client. There's a comfort level there.
And then moving on from, well, in 91316 at the bottom there, it says that the patient's currently feeling pain. Do you see that?
At the bottom of September 13th.
Yeah, September 13, 2016 on the progress notes. It says currently feeling pain. Do you see that?
Yeah, I see that now.
All right, now I'd like to flash forward to EW 13, which is an October 21, 2016 letter, Eagles Wings Counseling Center letterhead, addressed to whom it may concern. It's signed by both yourself, Rebecca Johnson, MS, registered mental health counselor intern, and Lauren Mock, MALMFTQS at Eagles Wings Counseling Center. Do you have that record in front of you?
Yes.
Why did you draft this letter?
From what I recall, this letter was drafted during the time that Maya was at All Children's Hospital, and her parents asked me to give a summary type of letter for her care.
Do you have a specific recollection of being asked to prepare this letter?
I have a recollection of it's either Beata or Jack calling me about this, asking me to do this.
What do you recall about that conversation?
That she was in the hospital, that things were not happening, that she was not being permitted to leave the hospital, and they were wanting some sort of information about our treatment plan, our treatment sessions.
And what did Jack tell you?
Jack told me that there were some abuse allegations and that there were investigations happening.
And do you know who was doing the investigating?
DCF.
Did Mr. Kowalski, when discussing this letter with you, give you any details about the allegations of abuse?
Yes, he told me what was happening as far as what they were accusing Beata of and what Maya was experiencing at the time. And I was happy to offer what we had been working on and what my care had been for her.
And it looks like here in the record, it says, quote, or in this letter from October 21, 2016, quote, most recently I have been treating Maya for depression as a result of her physical limitations of RSD, as well as the distress she feels because of her current circumstances, which include school and social settings, end quote. Do you see that? Is that a fair and accurate description of what you had recently been working with Maya Kowalski on?
Yes.
All right. I will move on from there. And so that gets us through Maya Kowalski through 2016. I think it would make sense now if we go through what we have here for Beata in 2015, if that would work for you.
Okay.
And in connection with providing services to Beata, I know Michelle Rogers handled several of those sessions. Did you work with Michelle at all in terms of rendering services to Beata Kowalski?
No, it wasn't necessary.
And why wasn't it necessary?
Because the issues that Beata were, whatever that may have been, that she was working on with Michelle was not anything that she needed to share with me. It was privileged between Michelle and Beata.
Before I go on to December 16, 2015, can you tell me if you recall your first visit with Beata Kowalski back in October of 2015?
I do somewhat. That was the session where I first met her. She was explaining to me Maya's situation, and she was there to determine if this would be a good fit for her and Maya, from myself and Maya to move forward.
Okay. And what do you recall Beata Kowalski explaining about Maya's situation on this intro visit?
I believe at that point, Beata's goal was to make sure that her daughter was being cared for emotionally with the anxiety and the depression that was happening.
Okay. And in terms of Beata Kowalski, it looks like she was scheduled for some individual therapy, which it appears as if that happened on October of 15 and then December 16, 2015. What were the individual counseling reasons that Beata Kowalski was presenting to you for?
Yeah, that would have just been following up regarding her daughter.
Okay. So in terms of providing individual services to Beata Kowalski, were you rendering mental health services to Beata Kowalski separate and apart from her daughter Maya?
No.
So can you explain to me what an individual counseling session involving a parent is, the counseling for that person's child?
Sure. It's normal to follow up with a parent at some point during treatment in order to review progress, discuss what was happening in therapy. It's quite usual, quite normal.
Okay. And so when it says individual services here on this appointment history that you were providing, is it your position that those were not individual services for Beata?
No, not me working directly with Beata regarding herself. That is just a way of categorizing it so we know how many people to expect, what's going on during that session.
Did Mrs. Kowalski, Beata Kowalski, ever bring up any marital issues during individual counseling sessions with you?
I do. I'm looking at the notes here for December 16th, and she had mentioned that her marriage was suffering.
Any idea why Ms. Kowalski began to present to Michelle Rogers for a series of visits through 2016?
I do not know.
Okay, fair enough. Looking at this 12/16/15 record from Eagles Wings Counseling Center at EW 62, it says here Beata requested at-home visits. Do you see where that is down towards the bottom?
Yes, I see that.
And would that be home visits for herself or for her child, or do you know?
For Maya.
Fair enough. And then I think it says next here under process notes, processed Mexico trip. Do you see that? What is that a reference to?
That means we would have talked about probably some of the way that and how that refers to her. That means we probably had a conversation regarding that trip to Mexico.
So, going back to this Mexico trip, what do you recall, separate and apart of the charting today, that Beata communicated to you about the trip to Mexico?
I don't recall anything sharing about this.
Do you recall Mom mentioning that the child was intubated and given enough ketamine to put her into what's known as a ketamine coma?
She did mention that, yes.
Okay, what do you recall about the ketamine coma?
That is all I knew about the ketamine coma.
Did Ms. Kowalski express any concerns or anxieties about the ketamine coma experience?
I'm guessing as a mother's, well, I'm not guessing, I'm sorry. I don't recall her saying anything specific about that.
Do you recall Mrs. Kowalski or anyone saying anything about returning to Mexico for additional ketamine treatments in December of 2015?
I don't recall.
Okay. And I think you referenced this earlier, but it says marriage is suffering here. Do you recall any discussion with Beata Kowalski about the nature of her marriage?
She did mention that the stress of Maya's illness was impacting their marriage.
How was it impacting the marriage?
Well, I've written here, there's a lack of communication. They're feeling on edge. They're feeling disconnected.
Do you know one way or the other whether Beata had underlying mental health issues prior to presenting to you?
I do not.
All right, let me go back now to Maya's visits beginning in 2017. So this would have been after Maya's mother passed away, after she left Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital. I'd like to kind of pick up there. Before I do that, though, I think you had mentioned that you had spoke to or reviewed some records from Tashana Duncan. Is that correct?
Yes, I spoke to Shauna
How often did you speak to Mrs. Duncan?
one time.
Approximately how long was the conversation?
I would guess 30 minutes. I don't recall.
Do you recall what you guys spoke about?
We spoke about Maya,
And what did you guys communicate about Maya?
that Dr. Duncan had evaluated her, I believe, and what the conclusions of that evaluation were.
Separate and apart from these notes, what do you recall about that family consult back in mid-January of 2017?
I recall that was soon after Beata passed away. So Jack, Kyle, and Maya had come in. And then it turned into just pretty much being a session with Maya.
EW15, it says, empathetically responded to client's story of waking at 1 a.m. the night her mom passed, woke up crying, missing mom. I was a little confused by this. Do you recall this conversation and this note? And can you please provide some context for it?
I don't remember any specifics around that note.
Okay. Because the way I read it, I thought, Maya had woke up around 1 a.m. the night her mom passed away, but then I wasn't sure if that was the case or not. Can you provide some context on what that note means?
I know just what's written here.
All right. And this would have been, the source of this would have been from Maya?
Yes.
On the very first page of these handwritten notes, EW14, there's a note here that says art therapy. Do you know why that was documented there?
Well, that was just clarifying what type of therapy we did that day.
Oh, that you did that day. Okay, understood. And then I see throughout your notes sometimes you allowed Maya to vent. What do you mean when you say vent?
Express what she was feeling in that moment, to give her a safe space to vent.
Okay, so under 125.17, I have mood here appropriate. Do you see that?
Yes.
And affect appropriate. Do you see that? Do you see it?
Yes.
And am I correct in assuming you didn't check depressed, anxious, or depressed on either of those two?
I did not, because appropriate is referring to what is happening specific to her in the moment. So she was feeling appropriate given the grief that she was experiencing, that she just lost her mother.
Did she appear depressed, anxious?
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Why not document that she was depressed and anxious or depressed?
Because below where it circled grief, right? And she has the appropriate mood for experiencing grief.
At any point rendering services to Beata Kowalski, did you think she needed to be Baker acted?
No.
Understood. Okay. And so EW24, that's the January 31, 2017 record. Do you have that in front of you?
I do.
And at the top again, you didn't check depressed, anxious, or depressed?
I did not.
So you went out on your own as a small business owner around that time and continued with the family. I assume you took them as your clients over to your new place?
I did.
Okay. So I just want to stick to Maya now. And I'm just trying to get an idea of what days of service you have, 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020 for Maya.
On my list, it says March 15th of 2017 and then January 23rd of 2020.
And do you know why there was a approximately 2-year and 9-month gap between March 15 of 2017 and January 23, 2020?
I don't know.
Did you recommend after March 15, 2017 that Maya take several months off of individual counseling? What did you recommend in terms of continuing with counseling after March 15 of 2017?
There was no specific recommendation.
Do you have any idea why there was this gap between 2017 and 2020 in terms of individual services?
My idea would be that the children were pretty overwhelmed and just needed to take a break.
Take a break from therapy?
Take a break from probably a lot of things.
And was that your recommendation?
It was not.
All right. Now, the next record I have here, and it's not listed on the appointment report because I think it's a family consult, and that was August 1 of 2017. Do you have that record? It's at RC3. And it says family in the upper right-hand corner. And you block some stuff out, but I can tell that Maya was there, and then I've got 2 black lines, and I would assume that's Kyle and Jack. They're blacked out. But do you have access to that family counseling note from August 1, 2017?
That's under Jack's records.
Okay. And then at the bottom of progress notes plan, it says here, quote, doing well, connected to friends, community, Maya doing well, hoping to walk before school starts 8:14. Do you see that? Do you see that? At this point, August of 2017, what's your independent recollection of Maya's ambulatory status?
She was still in a wheelchair at that point.
All right, let me jump forward, and we're in Maya's records here again. So we had an August 2017 visit. What is the next counseling record that you have for Maya Kowalski after August of 2017?
January 23rd, 2020.
Do you know why there was approximately a 2-year and 4-month gap in resuming individual counseling services from August of 2017 to January 23 of 2020?
I don't know.
Did you recommend that gap in time in terms of counseling services?
I did not.
I think you said you did not tell the patients to stop individual counseling between August 2017 and January of 2020, right?
Right.
And why did you want her to continue with individual counseling in 2017, 2018, and 2019?
Well, as I mentioned before, the continued care would have been a good thing.
Do you have any idea why there was no more care after August of 2017 and then 2018 and 2019?
I do not know.
Okay, and so you recognize the standard progress note at RC25 as your progress note from January 23, 2020?
Yes.
And this was an individual session with Maya?
Yes.
And I think you wrote here, quote, CT, and is that Maya, the CT?
Yes, and it looks like, according to the note, that it was a shared session between Maya and Kyle.
Right, okay, I was going to ask, it was split between M and K, so that'd be split between Maya and Kyle. You wrote here, CT reports all is well at home and at school, end quote. Do you see that? Who is that a reference to?
That would be in reference to Maya.
Okay. And later on it says that the CT slightly concerned about managing privacy after a case is revealed more publicly. Do you see that? What is that a reference to?
I think that's just, if neighbors, family, friends, school.
When you say case, what was Maya referencing there?
This particular case.
The lawsuit. Okay. Do you recall at this point whether Maya was walking in a wheelchair, on crutches?
Maya was walking at this point.
Do you know at what point she began to walk?
No.
My next note, or Maya's next note that I have here, is from June 11, 2020. It's at RC 26. Do you see that? Okay, and you recognize that as a progress note from your mental health services you provided on that date?
I do.
Okay. And am I correct in reading this that the client had, quote, no difficulty with comprehension of the social world and communication with others, no difficulty with physical movement and engaging physically in the world, and no difficulty in taking care of basic needs and self-care, no difficulty with social interaction and interpersonal relationships. The client's affective and emotional state appeared generally positive and mildly anxious. Do you see those?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's from your consult note?
Yeah.
All right. My next visit that I have, let me ask you this. Before I go on to the next visit, do you know why there was approximately a 6-month gap between the June 23, 2020 visit and the June 11, 2020 visit?
I do not know.
Did you ever recommend a 6-month gap in individual counseling session? Would you have preferred that Maya continue with individual counseling sessions in that 6-month interval? Did Maya make any comments in September 29, 2020 about any weight loss or any other physical issues she was experiencing following the deposition?
No.
If the patient had lost 20 pounds, is that the kind of thing you would document?
Yes.
If the patient wasn't eating, is that something you would document?
Yes.
Okay. And then our last note we have here, I believe, from Maya is from November 5, 2020. Do you see that?
Yes.
Do you recall if Maya expressed any concerns about her inability to eat during this visit?
She did.
Okay. At what point did she start having trouble eating?
I did not document a date for that, but as you can see in the psychotherapy note, we discussed her stomach issues.
Okay. So when you say stomach issues, is that stomach pain or her inability to eat?
Both.
Okay. So what do you recall about Maya's inability to eat around the time of the November 5, 2020 consult?
Just that she was uncomfortable. She had pain. She was very much trying to get rid of the anxiety and some of the fears, thinking that it was related to her stomach.
It has been suggested that Maya lost 20 pounds between late August and as recently as October, November of 2020. Do you recall Maya losing approximately 20 pounds off of her frame?
Those 2 sessions, the one in September and November, were video sessions, so I did not see her in person. Lighting was not ideal, so that would be hard for me to discriminate.
Did Maya or her father ever express the fact that she had lost 20 pounds to you?
Jack had expressed that he was concerned about her stomach issues to me.
Did he advise that he was concerned about weight loss?
Yes, I'm probably in that conversation.
If you have a patient you're treating who is having stomach issues that you believe are related to anxiety, would you ordinarily document a significant weight loss in your charting?
I would, but that would be, I'm looking back at Jack's notes because I want to say that I recall that I put that in one of his notes. I'm looking back to see.
Please do.
I don't see that. I don't see it.
Are there any scheduled or planned consults with either Maya, Jack, or Kyle coming up in the near future?
I do not think we have anything on the calendar as of now.
Are you recommending continued counseling services with Maya, Jack, or her brother?
Yes.
And with what frequency are you recommending continued counseling sessions?
At least once a month.
Based on your observation of Maya Kowalski in 2020, when you actually physically were around her, how would you compare her condition in 2020 to the Maya Kowalski you saw in 2015 and 2016?
Her condition has improved.
During your most recent consult visits with Maya or the conversation with Mr. Kowalski, was any reference ever made to a relapse of Maya's CRPS, which is also known as RDS and sometimes also listed as RSD?
No.
If there had been such a relapse communicated to you, do you think that's something that you would document in your records? There have been some experts retained by plaintiffs that have reached out to some of Maya's treating providers. Were you ever reached by anybody who was retained as an expert by the Kowalski family in this case to discuss Maya's situation?
I was contacted by a gentleman, I don't recall his name, regarding the future of what it could look like for Maya as far as work.
You're going to have to speak up on that one. I lost you, but I think you said you had spoken to somebody else whose name you didn't recall.
Right, somebody I didn't recall in regards to Maya's her career, occupation, what that may or may not look like for her.
Okay, so it sounds like you were contacted by like a life care planner.
I guess so, yes.
Okay, and you don't recall this individual's name?
Don't, not right now.
Man, woman?
A man.
Was it Mr. Santos Bifulco?
Wow, that's impressive.
The associate of his, possibly.
Okay, but that name, Bifulco, rings a bell?
Yes.
When did you speak to Mr. Bifulco or his associate?
Probably 3 months ago.
What was, to your understanding, the purpose of that phone call?
Just to get my insight on my future, I guess, what this could look like for her if she continues to recover.
And what was your input that you provided to this individual?
We also discussed continuing treatment, what would be probably necessary for her own psychological well-being. That was the majority of our conversation.
Okay, and what recommendations about continued psychological care did you provide to this individual?
That would be beneficial due to the PTSD, that she would have fairly regular check-ins with a therapist as the years go on.
And when you say fairly regular, how regular are we talking here?
I think it depends on how far out in the future we are.
How about the next year?
The next year, at least once a month.
At least, so you would advocate for more than once a month or exactly once a month?
1 to 2 times a month.
Would you recommend 1 to 2 times a month back in 2016?
Yeah.
Would you have recommended once or more a month in 2017?
Yes.
Would you have recommended once or more than once a month in 2018?
Yes.
Same question for 2019?
Yes.
Same question for 2020?
Yes.
Okay, so as we sit here today, I guess what I'm driving at is, as we sit here today, are you able to say after 2021 with what frequency Maya should have mental health counseling services? Can you answer?
You're just to clarify, you're asking me how often Maya should be in therapy in 2021.
I think 2021, I think you said once a month or more. And then I'm trying to get an idea of after 2021, are you able, as you sit here today, within a reasonable degree of probability, project how many services and sessions Maya would need in 2022 and beyond?
I would say once a month with some phone check-ins just to touch base.
And for how long would you want those services to continue?
12 to 18 months after that.
Understood. When you were talking to Mr. Bifulco or his associate, did you predict the future with him?
I pretty much gave him very similar answers to what I've shared with you.
Fair enough.
Probably did mention that there's going to be a lifetime probability of check-ins that she might need with the therapist due to her mother's suicide and due to the trauma that she's experienced.
at any point did anyone from Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital contact you to discuss Maya's situation?
I don't believe so.
As we sit here today, you're not able to say when the next therapy session with Maya is?
No, I have nothing scheduled as of now.
And have you had a chance to review Beata Kowalski's suicide letter?
No.
At any point did Beata Kowalski ever express suicidal ideations to you?
No,
And I think you previously testified you never saw a need to Baker Act her. Is that correct?
I did not.
Did you ever discuss with Miss Rogers the need to Baker Act Beata Kowalski while Miss Rogers was caring for Mrs. Kowalski?
No, that's all right. But let me just, in keeping it, paying attention to the September 29th visit and the November 5th visit of this year, did you make any referrals of any kind based upon the interaction you had with Maya or Jack?
No.
And would it be fair to say, based upon your normal practice or routine, that in the event that you did believe that whatever situation presented itself, if a referral was in order, you would have made such a referral?
Ms. Johnson, hi, it's Greg Anderson. I'm counsel for Maya Kowalski, the Kowalski family. On October 21st, 2016, you and signed by Lauren Mock, a letter to whom it may concern over at Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital. And it looks like it was faxed there, and it looks like it was faxed also to Dr. Sally Smith. I had it sent over. I was just wondering, maybe Christina had seen it or you remember it.
You just handed that to me.
Okay. I'm going to mark that as Exhibit 1 here. You were asked to do this, as I understand it, by the Kowalskis.
Correct.
And the reason was given to you that they wanted the doctors involved in this to know about you, that you were in fact treating their daughter, and what some of your opinions were, right?
Form.
The letter also says you were dealing with Maya for depression as a result of her physical limitations of RSD, as well as distress because she feels because of her current circumstances, including school and social settings. Was the inability to be able to be schooled of significance to Maya and her symptoms?
Yes.
Did you have an opportunity to observe the interaction between Maya and her mother, Beata, on multiple occasions?
Them on those family sessions notated in the appointment record.
How would you describe the relationship between Beata and Maya from what you observed?
Seemed healthy. It seemed good.
Did you ever find in any of the time that you observed the Kowalski family together or apart any indications whatsoever that Beata Kowalski was engaging in or was capable of engaging in abuse of her daughter?
My answer is no.
The times that you observed them together, would you, I see in your letter you say, each time Maya came to see me, I perceived nothing but love, care, and devotion towards her from her parents. Do you still maintain that opinion as to that relationship after all this time?
I do.
And you've had the opportunity to meet with Kyle Kowalski on a number of occasions since March of 2016. Has the death of his mother had significant effect on Kyle?
Yes.
Can you describe a little bit for the jury what Kyle has gone through the loss of his mother in this traumatic manner?
Kyle's been significantly impacted by his mother's death, as if any child his age would have been. Grief, sadness, feeling alone, all of it, for sure.
Sure. It goes into, as it come to your attention that CRPS goes into remission and then can come out of remission a number of times in the victim's life. When Maya becomes victim again to the pain and discomfort and problems, physiological problems that arise from a relapse of the CRPS, will she, into your opinion, into a reasonable psychological probability, require increased psychological and care and therapy to deal with the issues, sequelae that arise from it?
Yes. Yes.
Did you ever have anyone from Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital call you or email you or otherwise seek to speak with you about your care and treatment of Maya Kowalski?
My only interaction was with the social worker. I believe she was affiliated with the hospital.
So did you have the opportunity to express your treatment to them or not?
Yes.
You did? Okay. So they were aware that you were conducting behavioral cognitive therapy on Maya?
They requested my notes.
But you told them that you were performing behavioral cognitive therapy to assist Maya?
I do not recall if I said CBT specifically, but again, it's included in the notes that they had received.
Okay, so you said it in the notes. That'd be correct. Okay, and after those notes were transmitted, did you have any opportunity by their initiation? In other words, did any of them call you to confirm that, in fact, the Kowalskis had sought out behavioral cognitive therapy for Maya to treat this disease?
I don't believe so.
And had they contacted you, would you have explained to them that, yes, the Kowalskis did, in fact, seek these types of psychological therapies for their child to combat the CRPS? Would you have told them?
Of course.
Would it be correct that nowhere in your records is it reflected that Sally Smith contacted you?
I have not seen anything in my records saying such.
And if Sally Smith did contact you and inquired in any way about your involvement, you would have expressed to her that you had been conducting behavioral cognitive therapy on this child?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I'd like to draw your attention to another note with Kyle Kowalski from June 11, 2020, and it appears to be a shared video session with Maya. It's at RC21. Let me know when you have that note up.
I have it.
Okay. And now, so this was another joint session, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And do you see where it says client appeared to be, quote, very good with minimal difficulties and is able to cope well in most areas of life, end quote? Do you see that?
I do.
Okay. And you stand by that comment?
At that point, yes. Uh-huh.
Let me just cut to the chase. Do you have any evidence that Maya Kowalski received cognitive behavioral therapy services at your institution or elsewhere between January and August of 2016? Until she resumed on August 10 of 2016.
I don't believe.
Okay. So you don't have any evidence that there was any cognitive behavioral therapy January to early August of 2016?
No.
And you didn't recommend the cessation of services during that interval, correct?
I did not recommend the cessation.
What informed your decision about the relapse potential for complex regional pain syndrome?
That was, I believe, in some of the readings that I've done, and then in a conversation with Mr. Anderson.
Okay, so the concept of a relapse on CRPS that was discussed between you and Mr. Anderson when you guys spoke?
It was, but it wasn't the first time I've heard that.
What's your understanding of what kind of things can trigger a relapse in a complex regional pain syndrome patient?
Stress?
What else?
Possibly any other kind of illnesses that are happening at the moment that could trigger symptoms.
Do you remember physical trauma being one?
I not necessarily. I don't remember that specifically.
Okay. Any other things that can lead to a relapse, to your knowledge, of CRPS?
That's my knowledge.
Do you hold yourself out as an expert in the treatment of CRPS?
Not.
I believe Maya was your first pediatric CRPS patient that you treated, correct?
Correct.
How many other patients before Maya, whether they're adult or pediatric, have you provided services for that had complex regional pain syndrome? I think you were asked by Mr. Anderson whether mom did everything that she could to help this child. Do you recall that question or some variant thereof?
Yes.
Is it your opinion that maternal suicide is helpful to a child?
No, that is not helpful.
Why is it not helpful?
The trauma, the grief.
What is your understanding of why Maya's mother committed suicide? Or do you not have an opinion on that either way?
My understanding is that Beata felt that because the allegations were against her, she was what was keeping her child from coming home.
Okay. And who provided you with that information?
The family?
Okay, members of the jury, that concludes the first deposition. We're going to take a break.
We'd like to publish some to the jury before we take a break.
Is it short?
It's one page.
Is it in evidence?
It is.
Then yes, you may.
Thank you.
Could we see it, please, sir?
You may.
Is it a question of the deponent who's not here, or is it a question for me? Question for you. Okay. Are we okay to publish what Mr. Whitney wanted to publish?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Whitney, you can go ahead.
I'll ask the jury, perhaps, if they're done reading. We still have the jury taking notes.
Okay. Members of the jury, there was a request from one of your number about what is a Baker Act. In Florida, there is a mechanism by which certain individuals are allowed to take a person into custody against their will and take them to I think we call it a receiving facility to provide immediate psychiatric assistance. And it's much more complicated than that, but basically it's the ability to allow certain individuals to take someone into custody and deliver them to that facility for immediate help. Okay. With that, we're now going to take a 10-minute break. We do have another deposition to show you, and it's, going to take us into the 12 o'clock hour. So let's try to keep this break to 10 minutes.
All right.
Of our presence, are there any issues we need to address before we go on break?
I don't think so. Are the videographers providing to the court the running total of what was designated towards us versus?
What I need from both sides is you tell me what was what, and I'll record it. So,
Clay, do you have it?
and like I said, why don't you the lawyers talk about it?
Okay.
I want it in 5-minute increments.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, we'll be back in 10 minutes.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Judge.
I'm so sorry. What?
They want a bill for it.
You want to make it 10 to an hour like we're used to?
Well, I tell you, if it wasn't the math, I would probably just do it in the 0.1s, but that's 6 minutes as opposed to 5. anything we need to address before we bring the jury back in?
Not on behalf of the plaintiff.
Don't believe so, Your Honor.
Okay, let's bring in the jury. Okay, please be seated, everybody. Members of the jury, I want to confirm while you were away, you did not discuss this case amongst yourselves. You did no investigation and you received no information. Is that all correct? And that no one from the media or no one has approached you about this case since you went on break?
Correct.
And that you have not seen any media coverage since you went on break?
Correct.
Okay, Mr. Anderson, who are we calling next?
Yeah, that's right. I'm in deposition of Catherine Beatty. Catherine Beatty by deposition.
Okay, Mr. Reyes, you may, whoops, I need to turn the system back on.
Would you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
Catherine R. Beatty.
Good. And where do you work?
I work for Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital.
And what is your position?
I'm a pediatric intensive care licensed clinical social worker.
Have you been disciplined in any of your jobs?
Yes.
All right. Have you been disciplined in any of your jobs?
Yes.
All right. Tell me where and why.
I was disciplined at Johns Hopkins for yelling at another coworker.
And what was the consequence? Were you
It was just a written.
a write-up, basically?
Yes.
What happened there?
It was. I'm not sure if I understand your question.
You guys got into an argument?
Yes.
Okay. But whatever happened, Johns Hopkins felt it was necessary to write you up?
That's my understanding.
Okay, so in any event, after that discipline, were you subject to any retraining of any kind?
No.
And obviously you were not fired.
Correct.
What was the name of the person that made the complaint against you?
Her name is Pam. For the life of me, I don't remember her last name.
And what was her position?
She was a case manager in the cardiac care unit.
What's a case manager? Is that another social worker?
No, case managers.
The nurse?
No, well, she is a nurse, but they work to coordinate discharge for medical equipment, medications, home nursing. They work to help discharge patients to rehab centers.
And what was the essence of the dispute?
Yeah.
Here, let me show you. Maybe I can help you. I'm going to show you Exhibit 3 for the record.
Okay.
And what is that date?
11/18/2016.
2016. 11/18/16.
Yes.
So this was during Maya's stay?
Yes.
Okay. And what happened? Were you complaining at the time of covering more than one unit, if you will, or floor?
Yes.
At that time, were you covering more than one floor?
I was covering 2 units.
What units?
The pediatric intensive care unit and the cardiovascular intensive care unit.
All right. Where was Maya Kowalski? What unit was she in at this time, November?
She would have been on the 7th floor.
And what was that?
The 7th floor is a med-surg floor along with,
Med-surg?
yes, so
What does
some
that
of our
mean?
medical and surgical,
Okay.
yeah,
So for surgery.
yeah. And there's also EEG floor.
Why was she on that floor?
I don't know that.
Okay. But was that your assigned floor? In other words, were you part of med surgical or EEG?
No, I was not part of that.
But yeah, you stayed with Maya when she moved onto that floor, did you not?
I did.
And then in November, what's the date there?
November 18th.
You were complaining that you were essentially overworked by having both the pediatric intensive care and the cardio intensive care units to look after?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
I'm sorry.
And you chose nonetheless to take on responsibility for trying to manage visitation and counseling needs for Maya Kowalski?
It was an assignment. It wasn't something that I chose to do.
Okay, for the record, Ms. Beatty, it's from Nina Bagby Bishop. Who's she?
Yes. She was a social worker that was with the hospital.
All right. And it's to you, and it's dated October 19, 2016. Subject is 709 Maya Kowalski. Was 709 her room number or something? That designation there?
Yes.
Yeah, figured. Okay, and it says, Dear Kathy, Avon said you were wanting to continue to follow this child. Please let me know if you plan to do this now that she's on my floor. Thanks, Nina. All right, so I'm guessing Nina was the social worker on the 7th floor?
Correct.
And it says Avon. Who's Avon?
Yvonne was another social worker.
Avon said you wanted to continue to follow this child. Is that true?
No, it was assigned, and I said I would continue to follow.
Okay, so when Avon said you were wanting to follow this child, Avon was incorrect.
Correct.
You were assigned it, and you did not ask for this assignment in any way?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Did you receive any instructions, or including to just keep them up to speed from anybody from risk management?
Yes.
And who was that?
I talked with Patty Condon.
Okay. Patty, a doctor or nurse?
I don't know what Patty's profession is. She's
Okay.
in risk management.
Okay. Who else?
That would be who I talked to in risk management, mostly. I may have talked to Louise.
Was risk management fairly involved in this case? Maybe not initially in October, but after a few months?
Yes.
And so let me ask you something about how you got involved in this case. First, I want to know a little bit about your qualifications for a case that I think you would agree with me is this complex. Would you agree with me this is a complex case?
Yes, I would agree with you.
Tell me what, before being assigned to Maya, what specific training you had in CRPS?
I didn't have any in CRPS.
What is RSD?
It's regional pain disorder.
Okay.
I had to think about it.
All right. How about, do you have any specific training in RSD?
No.
How about Munchausen's by proxy?
Yes, in graduate school.
Okay, and what was that specific training that you had in graduate school?
Psychopathology.
And how long would you say they spent on Munchausen by proxy?
I can't tell you. That was a long time ago.
I mean, was this an entire course devoted to it, or is this one of several subjects of
knowing about different abuse disorders? What was it?
It was a course designed for psychopathology that also there was highlights of child abuse, different forms of child abuse.
Okay. And prior to the allegations against Maya Kowalski, how many cases, if any, of Munchausen's by proxy, where it was confirmed it was Munchausen by proxy, had you handled?
3.
All right. 3 cases?
Mm-hmm.
Did anyone at Johns Hopkins, management or physician-wise, ever question leaving you on such a sensitive case as Maya Kowalski after the write-up with your conflict with a coworker?
Not that I'm aware of.
So they left you on despite this incident, right?
Yes.
Would you agree with me that 3 cases do not make you an expert in Munchausen by proxy?
Yes.
Would you agree with me that you have no background training and experience to provide any expertise in Munchausen by proxy?
To provide?
Any expertise in Munchausen by proxy?
I have a little bit of knowledge of it from the cases.
All right.
But I'm certainly not, I have not researched, and I'm not a...
All right, so when you gained knowledge, though, it was from physicians, I would gather. Psychologists or doctors, people like that.
Sometimes, yes.
Well, did you read things about it or study anything
Yes.
about it? Okay, what did you read and study?
So through graduate school, I read many of articles that were written in the medical literature, along with the social work literature.
Specific to Munchausen by proxy?
Yes.
Okay. So then, are you telling us you had sufficient knowledge to determine whether a specific action, inaction, or behavior was consistent with Munchausen by proxy?
That's not my role at the hospital.
Okay. You alone would not know whether a particular activity, action, reaction, symptom was part of what, say, a DSM-4 or DSM-5 diagnosis of Munchausen by proxy would be.
No, I would know.
You would know which was a symptom and which wasn't a symptom?
I would know some of them, yes.
Okay, name the top 5 symptoms of Munchausen by proxy.
The parent seeks multiple medical professionals in order to get diagnosis of some very vague kinds of symptoms. The child may be admitted to ERs or multiple hospitals.
All right.
The parent is often unwilling to share information from other providers with current providers. The parents are demanding of certain medical treatments that seem out of place or out of line with the current medical diagnosis. The parents seem very attentive to their child.
Anything else?
You asked for the top 5, so.
Okay. I was thinking more in terms of physical symptoms of the child themselves.
Physical symptoms of the child is, again, very vague diagnoses. Symptoms could be just about anything, depending on what the parent was using.
Distinguish for me the telltale lesions from CRPS from, say, scratches.
I can't.
Okay. So these seem like more psychological evaluations about the parent's willingness to share information, right?
That's part of the DSM-5 diagnosis.
Okay. What is your role then?
So my role is to coordinate with the unit the needs for the patient that might be getting the medical team together in order to discuss the progress of a case, to discuss with the parents the medical condition of the child. I work with and making sure that all the multidisciplinary teams are working with the patient that need to work with the patient.
Aren't those medical decisions?
Well, if they are medical decisions, but if I have questions from PT, OT, or speech therapy, I may be working with them to make sure that parents and the providers understand what the needs are. I also work a lot with DCF on cases. So I'm making sure that the DCF orders are followed. I'm working with detectives and CPIs in coordinating their access to the patients, coordinating their access to records.
When you start caring for a patient, do you read the chart?
Yes.
Do you determine what the operating diagnosis is?
Yes.
Did this child's operating diagnosis include complex regional pain syndrome?
Her diagnosis included that, yes.
As soon as this child, the medical doctors, not you, hospital determined in the chart that she did have complex regional pain syndrome, that invalidated any allegation of Munchausen's by proxy, correct?
That was not a determination for me to make.
Well, you said that you'd read up on it, right?
On Munchausen, correct.
And you did recommend on multiple occasions that the child be kept in the hospital, did you not? I just read it to you.
Yes. Yes, I did.
And on multiple occasions, you made recommendations to keep the mother away from the child, did you not?
Yes.
And on multiple occasions, you made recommendations to limit the child's contact with certain family members, including the father, did you not?
Yes.
All of the things you were doing were based on a presumption that there was Munchausen's by proxy going on with this family, right?
Not my presumption. At that point, she had been sheltered, and I had to follow the shelter order along with the visitation orders that were given by the court. I made recommendations based on how Maya was participating in her therapies and with the staff.
Isn't it true you were the person in the hospital that had the primary control over who saw Maya, what Maya ate, what she did, who she could talk to?
No.
Okay, who else in the hospital, after reviewing all of these emails and memos we're about to go over, who else had day-to-day control over who Maya could see and not see, and who could come in at what time and not come in at what time? What other person?
That was up to the court order.
You read all these court orders before this deposition, did you not?
I did read the court orders.
And you're aware that when those limitations were put in, that the court then deferred to the hospital for the specifics of everything, right?
Correct.
The court made certain general findings for the benefit of the child, but then deferred to the hospital about how to implement those, right?
Correct.
Order behind you, but you were the person in terms of when we get to the hospital's discretion on to do things, you were the person that had most day-to-day control, if you will.
I was at that point consulting with RISC, and so that would have been up to RISC to interpret, and I asked many times to have RISC interpret them for me so that we knew what we were supposed to do and not do.
Right. But the day-to-day implementation of the orders left it up to the hospital, right? The hospital's discretion, correct? You can answer.
As much as we could.
Okay. That discretion then, is it your testimony here that your discretion, whatever actions you implemented regarding who got to see Maya, how much they got to see him, what she ate, all of these things that involved limitations on her life while she was in there, those actually came from the Risk Management Committee, right?
Yes.
If the father has visitation rights, who was making the decision of how, where, and when Jack Kowalski could see his daughter?
DCF.
So you were not involved in making that decision?
No.
Where are the orders from DCF?
This is it.
Okay. It says supervised. So in order to supervise, what did you understand needed to happen?
DCF had to give us somebody to supervise the visit. We don't do that.
Okay. And did they ever give you somebody to supervise the visit?
Mr. Kowalski had visits, so yes, I would assume they did.
Okay. Well, how did you know who was authorized to visit and who wasn't?
So CPI would call, or somebody from the Department of Children and Families would call us.
Who made the initial call to, or either call to the hotline?
The first one was made by Debbie Hansen, and the second one was made by Elaine Brown.
Debbie Hansen. And who's Debbie Hansen?
She was a social worker at the hospital.
Did you ever speak with her?
Well, yeah, I mean, she worked on the
About
team
this?
with me.
Okay. And then who was the next one? Elaine Brown?
Elaine Brown.
And who was Elaine Brown?
She was their social worker on the weekend.
Did it strike you, or does it strike you at any time, how serious it is to take a 9-year-old girl away from her family?
Well, yes, definitely.
How harmful that is to a child?
It can be.
Okay. So what did you understand was the reason that a shelter order was entered?
My understanding from the shelter order is that they had information from Dr. Smith and our medical records.
Okay. Dr. Smith then and JHACH medical records, right?
Yes.
As one of the people who saw Maya the most in the hospital, tell this jury what you saw with your training in Munchausen by proxy that indicated that this family was abusing Maya.
So what I can say is that the medical team reported to me that the parent...
No, I'm not asking what people reported to you. I'm asking what you saw with your own 2 eyes. Mark 1 eyeballs. What did you see that would support that?
I heard and saw the mother on...
You heard what?
I heard and saw on numerous occasions the mother demanding from the doctors that the child be given amounts of ketamine. And I heard discussions from the doctors saying that that was too dangerous.
Did you know at any of those times that there were multiple expert doctors who had actually prescribed that amount of ketamine?
I didn't know that.
No one ever told you that Dr. Kirkpatrick, she was under his care and he was prescribing that? Did you know that or did you not know that?
Early on, probably not.
Did you know Dr. Hanna was prescribing that?
Early on, probably not.
Okay, well, if it wasn't JHACH doctors, how would you know what is an appropriate amount of ketamine for a complex regional pain syndrome 9-year-old during flare-up periods? How do you personally know that?
Well, personally, I don't know that.
Thank you. Attending reports Nemours told the mother the current care the patients receive from other providers is not the standard of care, and it could be harmful, if not deadly, to the daughter. Patient would, So this is you repeating back what a doctor said that another doctor at Nemours, who was not treating the patient, said was the standard of care, right?
Say that again, please.
This note reflects, is that your note?
It's my note.
Okay. So this is your note stating that you heard from a doctor in the pediatric intensive care unit, right? That's where you got the information about Dr. Santana. You never spoke to Dr. Santana
Yeah.
yourself?
She was actually on the phone with us.
All right. So you were on the phone when she was talking?
Yes.
Okay. So would it be safe to say then that your basis with your own eyes and ears, which was the question, for why Maya should be taken away from her family was this request for an amount of ketamine that was in excess of what you heard was appropriate? Is that right?
Correct.
And did you explain to her why the report was made?
I attempted to, but she shut me down and didn't want to talk to me about why the report was made. She wanted me to name the doctor that made the report, and she wanted me to call whoever that doctor was and have them rescind it. She also wanted me to speak to risk management immediately and get them to call her back.
What's wrong with that? That's an indication of child abuse.
No, let me rephrase that. In all of my dealings at the hospital, I usually don't have parents who ask for risk management and who don't demand that we call the hotline report and have it rescinded. Also, she was saying at that point she had no intentions of following the recommendations here. I watched her and observed her in rounds, demanding with the doctors of what to be done.
All right. But look, you're talking about taking a little girl away from her parents. Are you telling me that, to the best of your knowledge, Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital took this little girl away for over 3 months because of a dispute over dosage?
First of all, Johns Hopkins didn't take this child away from her parents.
We'll get down with that later.
Okay. So that was a court decided that through DCF.
I understand that somebody called DCF and complained that this was child abuse and that this child should be taken away from her mother, and that the people that said that were All Children's Hospital doctors, social workers, and nurses. You understand that, right?
Under the Florida statute, we have the responsibility to report all suspected child abuse.
And I'm going to direct you to the second page, which is 001142, plaintiff's 1142. Are you familiar with this, Exhibit 8?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And if you look at 1142, the next page there, it says at the top, under the family have the right, the middle column, it says to talk with another doctor or specialist at your own request and expense, or to ask for a transfer to another healthcare provider, providing it is medically acceptable and the other provider will accept your transfer. Is that right?
Yes.
Did they have the right under JHACH Bill of Rights for patients to get transferred out of there upon request?
Yes.
Did they have a right, that is, did Maya have a right to a timely response to her complaints of pain, according to that?
Yes.
Did they have a right to participate in decision-making and being informed of options in pain management?
Yes.
Well, if she's repeatedly stating that she's in pain, it's a pretty good indication she's in pain, isn't it?
When we look at pain and when I see kids in pain, Maya was never showed some of the symptoms that we see other kids in pain having.
Okay. Tell me what training you have in the identification of pediatric pain.
So on an ongoing basis in the unit, I work with kids that have chronic pain or that are having pain from certain procedures and or things that have happened to them. We work on coping skills, sometimes relaxation therapies, sometimes mindfulness. I see children in pain from surgeries, car accidents, traumas. We see kids in pain from cancer. We see kids in pain from just, again, a multitude of things that might be happening to them medically.
Okay. Well, are there any accepted medical symptomology, I guess it would be, about identifying pain in children? Any criteria, any objective standards, or is this all subjective?
I think, again, that what we look for at all children's, that when I am actually in front of a child, what I'm looking for, and they're saying that they're in pain, we're looking to see how they're dealing with their daily functioning. We're looking to see again some of the things that they might be showing us, because not all children are going to be talking to you. So we might be looking for signs that they're uncomfortable in the bed, they're moving around a lot, they're pulling on an area that they might be in pain, they're avoiding touch. We would look to see if they were crying.
Okay, well, Maya cried, did she not?
Maya cried, but not while she was reporting pain.
Okay. Are you saying that Maya was not really in pain?
I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is, again, that Maya did not show the same type of pain symptoms that other children showed.
She showed exactly the same pain symptoms that other children showed at certain times, and at certain times she did not, correct?
I would say that Maya's pain was different than all the time from other children's pain.
How many complex regional pain syndrome children have you treated on a regular basis?
I think we've seen 2 or 3 in the pediatric intensive care unit.
Okay, and so complex regional pain syndrome is a little different than having a broken leg, is it not?
Oh, yes.
Complex regional pain syndrome involves a burning sensation under the skin, right? It's quite painful, is it not?
I've never had it.
Well, have you read anything on it?
I have read something on it.
Okay, so Maya's symptoms of pain were consistent with children who have complex regional pain syndrome, were they not?
Again. I'm sorry, I'm shaking my head. Yes.
They were, right?
Yes.
Sorry. Okay. I mean, they weren't any different than the 2 or 3 you'd had before. Right.
Oh, they were different. Yes. No, they were different. The other kids that we had that had complex regional pain disorder were often bedridden for days at a time.
Well, so was Maya.
For the 95% of the time, Maya was up in her wheelchair, going to activities within the hospital.
except from the days when she complained of extraordinary pain, right?
95% of the time that I saw Maya was up in her wheelchair, and the times that she would report extraordinary pain would be when she was prompted by her mother.
Prompted by her mother.
Excuse me.
Are you finished?
Are you finished with your answer?
Prompted by her mother, or if somebody asked her if she was having pain. And sometimes that was in the setting of being down in the, the child life department has a room, an activity center down on the second floor. So I do know that there were a couple of, maybe it was the guardian ad litem or the CPIs that met her down there. And while they were watching her have these activities, she was reporting her pain as being a 10.
Okay. Is it true that Ms. Kowalski wanted to record the phone calls?
Yes.
With you?
Yes.
But that you objected?
I did.
Why would you object to that?
So I think that all children's, we have a policy not to be recorded. And I was told by risk management that we weren't agreeing to be recorded in those phone calls.
There's a second volume, so they just need to cue it up.
Did you ever have any discussions with anyone from risk management to the effect that the Kowalski case, the Maya Kowalski case, was, and you can use whatever term you want, thorny or difficult or required a focus, was special in some way?
Yes.
And tell me about those conversations.
I can't tell you specifics. I can tell you that that there were definitely discussions that this was different than any other case because of the level of legal involvement.
Elaborate, please.
Usually, in cases that I deal with on a day in and day out basis in the PICU, when you have child abuse cases, the patients themselves do not have like a private attorney. Typically, we don't have patients that stay for as long as Maya does and go through as many different legal proceedings as this case did. Typically, we don't look at 3 or 4 different discharge dates for a patient. That we have up in the PICU.
Explain about the discharge dates.
So initially, there was a discussion to try to get Maya to Nemours once she had been sheltered. And case management, and I worked on that discharge plan, working with Nemours to get them the recommendations they were going to need, or getting them the records, I'm sorry.
And what happened there?
When I called Mom said that there was going to be a discussion with her attorney later that day. I called her back and she said she couldn't consent or not consent to the discharge to Nemours.
And the reason that she gave was because the discharge to Nemours was with a psychiatric diagnosis, correct?
I don't know that she gave me that information. I think she said that she couldn't, I think all she said to me was she couldn't agree or disagree, or couldn't consent or not consent to the discharge.
Well, did you ever learn that the reason no hospital would accept Maya was because ACH decided to keep psychiatric diagnoses in her record, and no hospital would accept a child with these psychiatric issues, alleged psychiatric issues?
Actually, Nemours was willing to accept Maya.
On what basis?
We could have transferred Maya that day that I talked to Mom, and I don't remember the day, but Mom wouldn't consent or not consent. We also had discussions with, I think it was Kennedy Krieger, who suggested another program, and I can't remember the name of that program.
If the mom signed off, strike it. Did you ever see any of the papers involving the sign-off that the parents were required to make in order to transfer the child?
I don't know what you're asking me.
All right. There's a recording of a conversation between you and Beata about the potential transfer of Maya to Nemours. You didn't tell her, or wouldn't tell her, what program she would be transferring into. And Maya and Beata said they would only transfer if it was into a CRPS program. Do you remember that conversation?
I don't know what you mean by a recording.
A phone call that was recorded between you two.
I don't. So, give me your question again.
Did you have a conversation with Maya?
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah, with Mom.
With Mom. Did you have a conversation with Beata on November 3rd, 2016, where there was a discussion about the potential transfer of Maya to Nemours?
Yes, I think I did.
And was the discussion centered on the type of program that Maya would be transferred into?
We were transferring, I think that in all actuality, she was going to an inpatient treatment program at Nemours that would focus on cognitive behavioral therapy, pain management therapy, and PT and OT therapy.
A psychiatric program, in other words. They weren't there to treat CRPS. They were there to convince her she didn't have CRPS, right?
Actually, no.
Okay.
It was supposed to be part of CPRS treatment, which would work on cognitive behavioral therapy along with pain management and then PT and OT therapy, and that was the program at Nemours.
It wasn't a complex regional pain syndrome program, was it?
I don't know. It was a Nemours patient or Nemours program, and we attempted, yeah.
Okay, but whatever was represented to Mrs. Kowalski, she refused to have her child committed to that program, right?
Yes. Well, she said she couldn't consent or not consent.
Okay. And then what happened after that?
Maya stayed at All Children's. We continued to look for, we were directed by DCF to continue to look for programs.
Well, so did you ever receive any notification, or was there any discussion that included you that Maya was not getting better and that CRPS was present, thus the allegations against Beata, the child abuse allegations, needed to be dropped?
No one ever said that to me, and in fact we noted on several occasions where Maya was moving her legs, moving her hands without any pain. Maya was engaging in activities such as foosball, cutting out and making crafts in the craft room. She was out playing the piano downstairs and often moved herself around the hospital. It was only after we gave that information to DCF that Maya then decided or quit moving herself around the hospital for a few days. It was noted in some of the music therapy and in PT therapy that she was able to move her feet and her hands and didn't complain of any pain while she was doing that. On occasion, when I would be in the room with Maya, Maya would be showing me her Shopkins, her prayer cards, and she was moving herself in the wheelchair, laughing, giggling, playing. She would be putting on her makeup, wanted to put makeup on me, wanted to put makeup on some of the nurses. And all during those times, there was no pain. And there were, Maya was very engaging, working really hard with the staff.
So you think, so we understand your testimony, that Maya was happy and thriving in the hospital.
There were many days that we saw Maya doing really well in the hospital and working with the therapists that were involved with her, yes.
And you say, I just left Maya's room. She told me she is furious, angry, and in pain. She told me she can't talk or trust anyone, and she knows there is court on Monday, and it's all lies. Maya told me if I have a problem, I need to talk to her attorney.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So she's telling you there she's furious, angry, and in pain. Does that sound to you like she's thriving?
Actually, there were very few days that we saw her like this. And this was only after either a visit or a conversation with somebody on the phone.
Uh-huh. So you're blaming it on who this time?
I'm not blaming it on anybody.
Did you listen in to her conversations with her attorney?
No.
Did you listen in on conversations when she was trying to talk to the judge in court?
No, I don't think so. Mm-mm.
So if Maya testifies that the reason she was uncomfortable with testifying over the phone and wanted to come into court was that she was terrified of you sitting next to her and what you would do to her, she'd be wrong?
Yes.
Okay. She just made that up, that you were sitting next to her during her court appearances.
I don't know that I was sitting next to her. I think she was
room.
She was with her attorney at those times.
Were you in the room?
I don't know. I don't remember being in the rooms.
Did you require Attorney Kelly to leave the door cracked while he was meeting with her?
We may have.
Why did you want to leave the door cracked while Maya was trying to consult with her attorney?
We were not in the room with her, but there had been an episode where Maya said she fell out of her wheelchair and was on the floor for hours. So at that point, it was discussed with risk management, and risk management wanted the door left open so that we could make sure to monitor the patient.
Really? So you think the attorney was going to let his client lay all over the floor and not help her? So you guys had to be there right beside her or listen in? Strike that. So the purpose of cracking the door and being right there next to it, because you were standing right next to the cracked door.
No.
Then, so we were going to be able to hear it by Maya shouting and screaming down the hall?
The door was left open so that the nurses could observe and make sure, because as they were walking by, it was not me observing. This was the nurses observing that were on the unit.
Okay, so, and the theory was that while Maya was in the room with her attorney, there was still a chance she would fall out of the bed and her attorney would not ask for help or otherwise assist his client lying there on the floor. So you guys had to be able to look in. Is that the theory? Was that the theory here?
So risk management, after that happened, wanted to make sure that the door was left open at all times so that there was site to site so we could make sure that Maya was safe, yes.
Why would it be a big deal that she fell on the floor?
I never said that Maya could move around freely. I said that we watched her move around with her legs. What Maya could and couldn't do was not my decision or making. I saw Maya move her legs. I saw Maya move her arms. I saw Maya move her feet.
All right, so the theory then was that because Maya said she fell out of a chair once, you guys had to leave the door open or cracked so that you could see her if she fell out of the chair, right?
That's the direction that we got from RISC, yes.
Okay. And so it explained to you that it was felt that the attorney would not be able or willing to help his own client if she did fall out of her chair with him there?
I can only speak to you what our direction was given, and that is that we had to leave the door open.
So it came down from risk management that Maya would not have, it was necessary to keep the door cracked, even when Maya was trying to consult with her own attorney.
Yes.
Did you ever confiscate a plastic bag filled with wafers and what? The host, holy water, prayer book. What else was in there? Did you ever confiscate that?
No.
You never took those away or prevented her from having those?
Never.
Okay. Was Maya allowed to see her priest?
That would have been up to the DCF order. We did have Father Tom that came and visited her when he was there on the weekends.
Okay. Let me show you what we've marked as 13. Can you identify this?
It sounds like it's a telephone conversation.
Okay. Had you ever seen this before?
No.
Okay. Who produced it? Do you know?
No.
Were you aware that on this date that's being described here, January 6, 2017, that Maya was tired and spirits low, and that Dr. Hannah had told her that she was getting worse?
She did tell me that, yes.
Okay. Did you ever speak with Dr. Hannah?
No.
Why is it that JHACH chose not to discuss Maya Kowalski, or for that matter, Beata Kowalski, with any of the ongoing treating physicians?
That would be out of my scope of responsibility.
Were you involved in efforts to keep Dr. Hannah off the premises?
That would be out of my scope of responsibility.
Was DCF also monitoring the call?
Sometimes they were monitoring the calls.
Why, if DCF was already monitoring, did you keep being there as well?
In the beginning, DCF monitored those calls, and then those calls we were doing the monitoring. So because DCF and the Guardian Ad Litem's office said they couldn't do those calls. So in order to facilitate the calls to make sure that Maya was getting them, we agreed to do that. I even came in on a couple of Saturdays to make sure that those calls happened.
Okay, but why did you have to be on calls when DCF was already on the calls?
There was a time that DCF wasn't going to be on those calls anymore, and we agreed so that Maya could get those calls with Mom.
And that's not really my question. My question is, during the period of time while DCF was still doing the calls, why was it necessary for you also to be on the calls? Because they were already being monitored by DCF.
The calls for the calls that DCF did, all I did, DCF would call my phone, and then I would take the phone in there and put it on speakerphone.
But why did you have to listen in too?
That's what DCF asked us to do.
Did you ever take Maya into the chapel?
No.
Did you ever sit Maya on your lap
And whenever they had the last court hearing, or maybe it was right before Christmas, and Maya thought she was going home, I was called by Charlotte to tell, and Charlotte asked me to go in and tell Maya that Maya wasn't going to be able to be going home for Christmas. Maya became very upset, started crying.
I'm just asking you whether you put Maya on your lap.
She asked then to sit on my lap.
Oh, so Maya asked you for permission to sit on your lap? It wasn't my idea? Strike it. So you're contending that this wasn't your idea, that it was Maya's idea that she sit on your lap. Is that your testimony?
Yes.
All right. And did you kiss Maya?
I don't think so.
Were you hugging Maya?
I think that we provide comfort to a lot of kids. So probably while she was sitting on my lap, I'm sure I did hug her.
Who gave you permission to touch the child in this manner?
We provide a lot of comfort to kids.
Now, my question, who gave you permission to be this intimate with that child?
So Maya asked.
She's 11. What adult, either Maya's mother or Maya's father, the only two people, not the state and not the hospital, who gave you permission to be intimate with that child?
So currently at that time, DCF had custody of the child, and the case manager on several occasions asked that we provide comfort to Maya.
And in your view, comfort included what?
I talked with Maya. She held my hand. I would hold her hand. She asked me to come in and pray with her.
I guess your answer is no one with any authority to permit you to be that intimate with their child gave you permission to do so.
So I do think a couple of times that Mr. Kowalski and I discussed the fact that I provided comfort to Maya.
Well, was Mr. Kowalski complimenting you about it, or were you telling him that you were providing comfort?
I can't tell you how the conversation happened, but I can tell you that Mr. Kowalski thanked me.
So he's being polite. So by thanking you for comforting his child, is it your interpretation that that meant he believed it was okay for you to have the child on your lap and be able to hug her and kiss her?
Again, I don't think that I kissed her.
Are you sure you didn't kiss her?
Pretty sure.
So if Maya specifically remembers you kissing her and telling her it was going to be okay, that's just another thing that she made up.
Typically, I don't think I would tell any of the kids that were in this situation that they're in that everything's going to be okay. I think that we would talk about things look really bad right now, and I'm working more to help Maya with what her thoughts are, not with that's not usually in the repertoire of words that we would have used with her.
Are you a member of the National Association of Social Workers?
Yes.
Are you familiar with their code of ethics?
Yes.
Let me show you what we'll mark, and it's unfortunately it's highlighted, but I'm going to mark it as 14, and we'll swap out I need a stapler too, or pen. But let me ask you about section 1.10. Is that, does it appear to you to be the code of ethics for, what's your organization called?
National Association of Social Workers.
Does it appear to be your code of ethics?
Could be, yes.
And is there a specific section there about social worker responsibilities regarding physical touching of the patient?
Yes, there is.
And is that section 1.10?
Yes, it is.
Could you read it to the jury, please?
Social workers should not engage in physical contact with clients when there is a possibility of psychological harm to the client as a result of the contact, such as cradling or caressing. Social workers who engage in appropriate physical contact with clients are responsible for setting clear, appropriate, and culturally sensitive boundaries that govern such physical contact.
You had no specific authority to touch that child in that manner, did you?
I was asked by the case manager to provide comfort to her, and Maya asked if she could sit in my lap.
Well, a child can't give consent to be abused or touched, can they?
It's certainly at no point did I touch Maya in any way that was sexually related.
Okay. Would you agree with me that a child cannot give consent?
Children ask for comfort and the kind of medical setting that we work in at all times. We often sit with kids and hold their hands or hold them. I mean, especially when it comes to kids under the age of 10 to 12.
There's a big difference between a kid on your lap with your arms around them and holding a child's hand when they're scared, isn't there?
Maya was sobbing that night because she couldn't go home.
Let me show you Exhibit 15. For the record, it's an email from Kathy Beatty dated Monday, November 7th, 2016, regarding MK. It's to Audrey Peterson. You recognize this?
Mm-hmm. I recognize the people on it, yes.
All right, so who's Audrey Peterson?
She was the case manager for the 7th floor.
Okay. Okay, and it says, I'll call you later with massive update. Describe for me what the massive update was.
I have no idea without going back and taking a look at my notes from that day. So I guess I didn't have a chance to talk to Audrey that day, so I emailed her the next day. Said there was no update available as the parents will not consent or decline the placement at Nemours. There is a hearing today and Thursday that will clear up the matter.
That's a massive update?
Yes, because we were looking at discharge, and we were looking to get Maya on to some kind of physical therapy. So for us, yes, that whenever there's not going to be a discharge, that's a big update for us.
That's massive, that it's not going to be a discharge, huh? That's the only thing you guys discussed about Maya Kowalski or her situation.
Yeah, because I didn't talk to her on the 7th. That's per her email. But yes, anytime there's a delay in discharge, it's massive for us.
You've got an affidavit on November 2nd, 2016, and then Exhibit Beatty 16, and then we've got this November 7th email regarding massive update, which is 15. And then we have what I'm going to mark as 17, which is what? Tell me what that is. For the record, it's an email from Kathy Beatty to Megan Leaf at My Florida Families, dated November 9th, 2016, so 2 days later than the massive update email. Late in the day. What is exhibit?
This is Dr. Diana Young. on the 9th day, indicating she did another affidavit for transfer.
All right, this is the second affidavit for transfer?
Yes.
All right. So let me get this straight. Am I correct that you helped on the first affidavit that said nothing about factitious disorder or conversion or anything like that, right?
Yes.
And then you do an email, I'm just talking about the timeline here, you do an email to Audrey Peterson, the case manager, where you say, I'll call you with massive update 5 days later, right? I'm sorry, it'd be 3 days later. No, it'd be 5 days later.
Yes.
Okay. And then 2 days after that, there's an email from you to Megan Leaf forwarding this affidavit of Diane Young, right?
This was on the 9th, yes.
All right. And you sent this to Diane Young. Why?
I didn't send this to Diane Young. I sent this to Megan Leaf
Sorry, you did send it to Megan Leaf. You sent it to Megan Leaf. Why?
because Diana Young wanted it sent to the state for, I guess they were having a court hearing,
Okay. Then,
or they were going to get a judge so that we could go ahead and discharge.
all right. So, is Diana Young a pediatrician?
Yes.
Is Dr. Dees a pediatrician?
Yes.
Were they both seeing Maya approximately the same time?
They could have been, one of them could have been working for part of the week and then the other one for the other part of the week.
Okay, but they were both seeing Maya, obviously.
Yes.
Both being attending physicians?
Yes.
And then Dr. Young here says the problems are bilateral lower extremity atrophy with conversion and factitious disorder. Do you see that there?
I do see that.
Why the difference between the two pediatricians seeing the same child?
I can't answer that for you. I wasn't involved.
You weren't involved in the second affidavit?
No.
Did your massive update have anything to do with the creation of the second affidavit from Diane Young?
No, it would have been about discharge because at that point we were looking to discharge.
Let me show you what we'll mark as 18 and ask you to identify it. And for the record, the first email is from Kathy Beatty, January 5th, 2017, dated, it's JHACH 10160 through 163. Ask you to identify that, see if you know this exchange.
Yes.
And what is this about?
So I think I'm pretty sure this is the day that Maya was going to the courthouse and then going to see Dr. Hannah. And we were asked to take pictures.
Risk management asked you to take pictures?
So I have to go all the way back to the beginning. So
it was 18?
Yes.
It's close.
So Dr. Danielson notes in her email about pictures. I was contacted. Patty wanted to know, is CVI able to help out? They can't. They're doing their own pictures in Sarasota. And then I indicate that I think that we should do them here at the hospital. Patty agrees. She suggests that 2 people are in the room, and she has a camera.
So who's Patty?
Patty Condon is risk management.
So risk management made the decision to have these pictures taken of Maya?
Yep.
And tell me what happened. What did you do with Maya?
The bedside nurse and I went in and took pictures of her arms, her legs, her face, and her stomach.
Was she in her bra and panties?
She was in her sports bra and a pair of shorts. I think we took pictures of her back too.
Bra, and she wasn't in panties, she was in what?
Her shorts.
Who gave you guys permission? I say you guys. Who gave risk management permission to take photographs of this little girl's entire body?
So that would be, again, I was directed by risk management to do that.
Did you object in any way to this?
No, I did not.
Had you ever taken pictures of a child without any clothes but bra and shorts before? Not your own, but I mean in the professional context.
In professional context, in the foster care program, if they were going to visit a situation, or when they came back, if there were injuries, yes, we did.
But she didn't have any injuries. She'd been with you for 3 months at that point, right?
Correct.
So did anybody give you any reason why they took pictures?
I was just directed by risk management to do that.
Was there any discussion at all of why it was necessary to take pictures of this little girl in her sports bra and shorts?
Like I said, this started with Dr. Danielson and came down to me.
Who's Dr. Danielson?
Her name, Dr. Danielson was probably the attending that day.
Okay, so this wasn't coming from the government. It wasn't coming from DCF, right?
This was coming from our institution, Dr. Danielson.
Right, not from DCF. This was an internal decision to ACH.
Yes.
What steps were taken to call the parents and ask whether you could take pictures of their child like this?
We didn't call we didn't call the parents.
Why not?
Because at the time the child was in the custody of DCF and they gave their permission.
How did DCF give permission for you to take pictures of this little girl in her sports bra and shorts?
So they were getting ready to do their own pictures.
Who was?
DCF. They did their own pictures in Sarasota.
So why was it necessary for you to do pictures?
I can only speak to you to what I was asked to do.
They didn't tell you why. They just said do it?
Yep, pretty much.
Well, pretty much.
Yes. The direction was to do the pictures.
Was Maya upset?
Yes.
She did not want you to take pictures of her like that, did she?
She did not.
But you went ahead and took pictures of her anyway.
Unfortunately, we did.
Was there an issue over scratches that Maya had on her?
Yes. So, according to my email, there was a concern that Maya was self-mutilating. And my note indicates on Thursday there had been inappropriate conversations with the mother that had been witnessed by staff. Or that was due to Charlotte's.
Okay. One last email here, and it's 19, because we're taking it out of order, and it's JHACH 9829 through 9831. Show you that. You recognize that?
Yes.
Okay, and what is this?
So this was a letter that Maya wrote on or around November 10th and wanted the judge to see. So I scanned this in, or faxed it to, I'm not sure which, to Safe Children's Coalition.
Who are they?
The community-based care organization that was case managing this.
All right. Did anybody give it to her lawyer or some way to get this to the judge?
That's why we sent it to Tanya Hutchins, who we were asked to send it to so it would get to the judge.
She says, I am not doing well at all. I'm hurting worse than I was at home. Is she telling the truth there to the judge, in your view?
I can only report what Maya's telling you.
And they are not doing a good job with therapy or managing my pain. Is she telling the judge that?
Yes, she is telling.
Any of the pain meds they give me don't work at all. Had she told you that?
No, she didn't really talk about her pain medications too much with me.
Okay. They talked to the doctors about it, right?
Probably.
Someone dropped me the other day. Did that happen?
I don't know.
My parents did nothing wrong. They just listened to the right doctors for my meds, and guess what? It worked. Okay. And then ever since I got here, I got worse. It's causing me more pain, and I really don't want to go to Orlando for my rehab either. All I want is to go home, be with my family, friends, and never have this problem ever again. Please help me. Love, Maya. And then she puts a P.S. I had better therapy at home. Now, based on, you read this, right?
I did.
Okay. Did you ever have any interaction with any of the attorneys advising ACH?
Yes.
Who'd you have interaction with?
Mr. Hunter, but I also had interactions with another man. I don't remember his name.
Shapiro.
Were you party to any conversations? You don't tell me the contents. Party to any conversations where any of the attorneys were involved?
Yes.
And was risk management involved in those?
I think so, yes.
Let me show you 21 and ask you if you can identify that.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. So you drafted this letter that's of November 29th, 2016?
I typed this letter up from Dr. Amin.
Okay. Did you participate with Dr. Amin in putting together these recommendations?
Actually, this would have come from the medical team.
And who was this sent to?
I think that we sent this to the case manager
Case manager for whom?
for Maya, for the Department of Children and Family Services. It could have gone to Charlotte Laporte.
Okay. So this is the letter to the state.
Yes.
Okay. And in this, there's recommendations including visits with fathers suspended at this time unless supervised by DCF. That was the hospital's recommendations, right?
Yes.
Phone contact with mother limited to one time weekly supervised, and mother instructed she can't record phone calls, and mother is given same instructions as father. Do not discuss court case. Do not talk with Maya about her pain and what pain medication she is or isn't getting. Do not talk with Maya about food here at the hospital. Do not discuss the supervised visits when they are or aren't taking place. That's in there, right?
Yes.
Okay. Aren't those exactly the things that DCF turned around and instructed the parents about?
I think that prior to this, there had already been an email. I think that came on around the 17th of November. Charlotte Laporte had already given that information.
Then why write this? Why include these if it had already been ordered? Why would you do all these recommendations?
You have to, Dr. Amin. You would have to talk with Dr. Amin about that.
And you didn't discuss this with Dr. Amin while you were doing it?
Dr. Amin gave me this document to type up.
What input did you have in this?
I don't think I have a lot of input in this at all. Dr. Amin gave me a letter that she wanted sent to the court or to the case manager. And again, this is trying to position pieces of this to help Maya get to Nemours.
You also recommend Maya's phone be removed.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yes.
Members of the jury, that concludes the playing of the deposition. Are there any issues we need to address before the jury is excused?
I'd like to recall Jack Kowalski for about 4 questions.
Come on up. Members of the jury, you ready for the weekend? No, looks like there's a question.
Oh, yeah, you do need to publish.
Had I known there was a question, I wouldn't have said what I just said. Okay, members of the jury, one of your number asked a series of questions, and some of them I'm just going to give a broad response to, and then others I'll give you more specific. I want to remind you that, this is like we said at the beginning of this case, this is going to take a couple of months, and so you can't get every single piece of information at the same time. It's just going to take some time to get all the information out. So you're not going to be able to get everything right this moment. I will tell you, any exhibits that are admitted into evidence will be available to the jury during your deliberations. Now, with respect to some of the specific documents, I'm just going to refer you to my generalized statements. There also was a request for a written copy of the deposition, and unfortunately under our rules, we're not allowed to send back a written copy of the deposition. I think the other one was a request about Mr. Kowalski testifying. I will tell you, not today, but it's my understanding that Mr. Kowalski will testify again before the plaintiffs have rested the plaintiff's case in chief. And again, I just want to remind you, this is a process that takes time, and so please remember that you're still going to be getting more information as we progress during this case. And with that, that's all I'm going to be able to respond to with all those questions, but I appreciate them. I did say, are you ready for the weekend? And the reason why I'm saying that is because the lawyers and I are going to be working this afternoon outside of your presence. And this was planned kind of recently, but instead of having you come back and forth, it's just easier if I let you go. We're going to be back at the normal time on Monday, so I want to be able to bring you through the door at 9 a.m. to begin. Right now, we're probably going to be doing 5 days next week, okay? Do not discuss this case amongst yourselves. Do not do any investigation. Receive no information. Please, 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 if someone approaches you about this case, you tell them to stop, walk away, and report it to the court deputies. And again, do not watch any or review any media accounts of this trial. Have a wonderful weekend.
All right, we're texting.
Okay, please be seated. Do you want more than an hour, or is an hour enough to get everything? So if we're back here at 1:30?
Yes, Your Honor.
I think that would be fine, Your Honor.
Then I will see everybody back here at, one last thing. Did you have the time breakdowns for me? Or will you tell me when?
We'll tell you when we return, Your Honor.
Yes.
Okay, I'll see everybody at 1:30. We're in recess.